And it got so late that he saw that they needed something to eat too. But the disciples and him still hadn't ate. So I think when we look at this from a perspective of blessing, I see, number one, Jesus having his own need and thinking of himself less than and thinking of others more, or like Philippians said, thinking of them better. And then in response to how he saw them, he voluntarily went forth out of his way to say, what is it that we have that can feed them? Because the disciples were like, oh, like we should just let them go so they can go and find what they need. But Jesus was like, no, you feed them. What do you have? We should not verbally or by action equivocate our passion for them as lost sheep in a way that communicates that we are also not sheep in need of a shepherd.
That's the heart of the story, God mercy. We were all in rebellion and God came after us. I think that we need to allow the boys in the jail connect his story, their story, with the gospel. Never like be pushy or trying to they make a decision right away. We shouldn't do that.
Everybody's got a story, and they think their story is just their own, like it's isolated, but it's part of what God is doing. Where the book of Ruth is not just the story of Boaz and Ruth; it fits into the big story of redemption. And if they can see that their story can fit into the big story of redemption, then they can make sense out of their lives.
But he also worked creatively by healing, by teaching in his parables, by forming community with his disciples in the midst of chaos. It seems like life in jail often really has like this pendulum swing between like extremes. It seems like there's activity, but there's also maybe boredom, there's like noise, but then there's also like silence, there's control and chaos in the midst of that. And I think this rhythm of recreating offers like peace and purpose, which counterbalances all those things. So it teaches that like rest is not just a reward for working hard, but it's actually like part of walking with the Lord. And creation isn't about like proving worth, it's about expressing God's image. And the Spirit works in both silence and sound.
Their form of celebration might have been intoxicating, turn into alcohol or smoking. Like that was their type of community. That was the way they bonded. How uncanny, but also ironic would it be for Christians to teach them how to be free and how to be an image of God while being confined.
There is both the physical reality of eating and then also the what's pointing to the spiritual reality of our hunger and nourishment in Christ. Luke 14:12-35 basically goes into the first verse is when you give a lunch or a dinner, don't invite your friends, your brothers or your sisters, your relatives or your rich neighbors. If you do, they might invite you back and so you'll be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they could not repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. So that's a command from God. And so there is a command of God to not only care for the physical and practical needs of others, but also to identify with others around the table. I think it's important to sit with them at the table, to fellowship together with them, not just to feed them and to stand back, but I think it's important to eat alongside of them because of that identifying piece. The guards as well, like the people who are serving these kids too.
People can see God as a ruler, as a distant father, or punishing father. But the story just invites us to see Jesus as a forgiving father, who always, ran toward the broken, toward the lost, to the people that is, messy. We can see that the gospel is always a story of redemption.
When did we see you? We didn't feed you. When did we see you? And we, whatever. When were we in prison and you didn't visit? Like, we were never there. And it's like, no, like, what you did for the least of these, you did for me.